y'all doing? You guys glad to be here? Anybody happy to be here? Man, I am so happy to be here today. And you guys, you look good. This section looks good because my wife's over here, all right? But you guys look good. You guys could have tried a little harder over here. No, I'm kidding. You guys look good. Hey, our online family, shout out to you guys right now. I know you stayed home today because you thought your PJs and your couch looked better, but that's okay. We love you. And can you guys give it up for our online family real quick? Show them some love. Love that you guys are with us. And man, it's good to be back. I was out a little bit in September, which, by the way, didn't Cotter kill it? Like, my goodness, like, if Cotter was not a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I'd let him preach every week, all right? Like, every week. No, I'm kidding. But Cotter did amazing. My family was out of town a little bit last month. And my family, we got to, like, come to church and sit and listen to the message. We sat in the back there. Shout out Man Loves. We were back there. That's our row back there. And it was good to just come and sit in church and listen to a message. And just so you know, just put this out there. When you come to Bayshore, it's not about who's speaking. It's about Jesus. It's always going to be about Jesus. I've had people say to me before, like, you know, Joel, I don't really like it when you come to church, but you don't speak. You know, I've had people say to me, like, you know, Joel, you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, which I am, by the way. Woo-hoo. Yeah. But I've had people say, like, you're a Baltimore Ravens fan. Imagine, you go to the game and the star quarterback's hanging out before the play or before the game, but when the game starts, the quarterback's sitting in the stands. How do you feel about that? Number one, all right, there was a time when our quarterback was Joe Flacco, and I wish he was sitting in the stands. Yeah, I bet you will. All right, but the second thing is that's a great analogy, except the star quarterback here is Jesus, not me. All right, he is the star quarterback. He will always be the star quarterback. And so it's not about me or Cotter or whoever's speaking. It's about Jesus in this place. And so it's really, really good to be back. And for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about temptation. We're calling this one Temptation Survival Guide. So, survival guide. Turn to somebody and say, I'm a survivor, not going to give up. Come on, tap into your Destiny's Child. Look, Kristen's doing it. She can sing it better than the rest of us. Hey, let me set up today's message this way. My family was in the Outer Banks last week. And anybody ever go to the Outer Banks, vacation in the Outer Banks? Yeah, man, we love it down there. When we go to the Outer Banks, we stay in this town that some of you ladies know all about. We stay in Rodanthe. All right, and you all ladies know about Rodanthe because of this movie right here. Come on, how many of you, like the rest of the men have had to watch this movie, some of us. How many of you have seen this movie? Okay, don't lie in church. Some of you are like, I don't know, I'm a man. Yeah. Okay, I've seen this movie. I think my wife made me watch it. I don't know. But this house actually, right here, the Knights in Rodanthe house, that's like right down the road from where we stay. And so it's like, it's romantic down there. And I say that because I'm pretty sure my son Nixon came from the Outer Banks, from Rodanthe. That's too much information. All right, Nate, too much information. All right, anyway. Let's move on. Scrub that from the internets. So my family goes down there every year to Rodanthe, and I got to tell you about one day when we were down there last week. I think it was Wednesday, and we were down there on Wednesday, and we were eating lunch. It was around 11 or 12 o'clock, and we were in our rental place, and we're on the fourth story because all these places are like huge, and we were on this fourth story of this place, and my mom was sitting at the table, and my mom said, I think somebody's vaping, because she looked out the window, and there was like this cloud of smoke. And so we all jumped up from the table. We ran to the window to see what's going on, but nobody was vaping out there. But the neighbor's backyard, the house next to us, the tourists over there, their backyard was on fire. I'm like talking, call 911, call Fire Marshal Bill, call Smokey the Bear. It is not nights in Rodanthe. There is a fire in Rodanthe. And so everybody over there at that house, everybody's like running around like this. Woo! All the renters over there were like running around like, except for two guys. There was one guy. He had taken their little garden hose, and he pulled it as far as he could to the backyard, but it's still like 15 feet away from the actual fire. And there was no water pressure at all on this thing. And so he's like got his thumb over trying to hit it. It's kind of like this. He was just like, sorry, Butch. Got Butch. He's trying to put out the fire with like this little like. Now, is this going to put out a fire marshal bill fire? Yes or no? No. Now, this guy wasn't very smart. And I say that because, the whole crew over there was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's true, okay? And he was on it was like 11 o'clock. I'm pretty sure he was on his 12th beer. And so he's like trying to put the fire out. So that's not working. The other guy at the house that's not running around like this is just laying on a pool float in the pool the whole time. The entire time this fire is going on. And I thought that was dumb. And then I thought about that may be the smartest place to be, during the fire. But it is a big fire, all right? And so it's really windy. We're pretty sure, I was sure it was going to catch that house on fire, and then it was going to catch the house that we were on in fire. And so I'm looking down, and I had this moment. I thought, he needs a longer hose. And so your pastor ran down 4 flights of stairs, grabbed our hose at our house. I went to our pool wall, jumped over the pool wall. The drop over the wall was at least 8 feet, maybe 80 feet. I can't tell. I nailed the landing, all right? Landed. I jumped over their pool wall, ran to the fire, ran and took the Pittsburgh Steelers guy's hose, attached our hose, and your pastor put out the fire before the fire company even got there. Woo! So I would like to be called Fire Marshal Joel. All right, that's what I would like to be called. Well, that really did happen. And listen, I was the only one in my family that ran into the fire, which I reminded my family of for the rest of the trip. My wife, you know what she did? My wife got our kids, which is smart. She grabbed like 2 things, her phone and her library book. And ran out and almost got in the minivan and left. That is true. So the girl's trying to get the library book. What did I say?
I didn't want that extra charge.
You didn't want that extra charge, all right?
She trained her well.
So she got the library book, and the guy in the pool at the end of the fire was still in the pool. Just hanging out in the pool. Now, I know some of you are like, what does fires and Rodanthe and Richard Gere movies got to do with me and temptation? Here's my point. I think temptation is a lot like that fire. Because temptation pops up out of nowhere. Just like that fire. Temptation catches all of us off guard, and temptation requires us to choose what we're going to do to respond to it. We can grab the hose and put it out and grab the library book and get in the minivan and run away and get rid of the temptation, or we can just let temptation do its thing, give into it, lay in the floaty in the pool, and just let it destroy everything around us. Come on, isn't temptation a little bit like a fire? Did you follow me on that? Yes. And so temptation can be like a fire, but I got good news. All right. The good news is this: you and me and all of us have a God who gives us a way out when we are facing temptation, who gives us a way out when we're facing addiction. Now, our God doesn't have like some sorry little garden hose that can't put the fire out. Our God has one of these. All right, he's like the fire hydrant. He's like that plane that flies over the fire that drops all the red dust on it. I don't even know what that stuff is, but I want some, all right? Listen, our God always gives us a way out when we are facing temptation, when we're facing addiction. Now, I don't know, what sort of temptations we have in the room. I don't know what sort of addictions some of you are struggling with, but here's what I do know. We're all tempted by something. Maybe you're tempted to shop. You have that retail therapy gene. Come on, somebody. And you see those high heels at the outlets, and the high heels start talking to you. They say, buy me. Buy 3 of me. Hashtag YOLO. You'll look like a fire emoji wearing these heels, whatever. Speaking of fire emojis, maybe you're addicted to your phone. You got a bad case of the scrollies. Come on, who's ever had a bad case of the scrollies? A lot of you are lying in church. All right, so point it out, like calling her out. Maybe it's road rage. I'm not going to name any names. Maybe it's lying. Maybe it's gossiping. Maybe it's you eat too much or you eat too little. Maybe it's just you drink way too much. Or maybe it's that, it's an illegal substance. Or maybe it's, pain pills. And it started off like legitimate, but now you're like, I can't stop taking the pain pills. Maybe it's a website you want to click on, but you just click on it. Well, one thing that all y'all have been tempted with in the past is we used to have these orange pens in the back of the seats. Y'all stole all of our orange pens. Our budget for pens went up like 5,000%. I'm like, Cotter, put the big pens in. Put them in. We're trying to go above ground, not supply the church with pens. Listen, I don't know what your temptation is, but I do know we're all tempted by something. And I say that because here's our verse that we're going to use throughout this whole series. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. It says, no temptation has overtaken you except what is what? Which means you're not the only one tempted. We're all tempted, okay? Turn to the person next to you and say, don't judge me, you're tempted too. The bad news is we're all tempted by something, guys. But here's the good news. The second half of that verse, it says, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, and you will be, He will also provide what? A way out. When you're tempted, our God is going to provide you a way out so that you can endure. Everybody say this with me. Every single time I'm tempted, at the outlets, on my phone, to beer bong. Do people still beer bong? Is that still a thing?
Not really.
Wait, how do you guys know what that is? See, I just set you up. All right, no. Come back to me. Hey, say this with me. Every single time I'm tempted, my God will always give me a way out. Aren't you grateful for that? I'm grateful for that. And so today's going to be really simple. I'm just going to give you 4 thoughts on temptation. And just so we're all on the same page, temptation is anything that promises satisfaction at the cost of obedience to God. It's anything that promises satisfaction at the cost of obedience to God. So you all on the same page with me? Okay, so thought number 1 is this. We'll put this on the screen. It is not a sin to be tempted. It's not a sin to be tempted. Now, I'm curious, is anybody like me and you associate Dunkin' Donuts with happiness? Anybody? Yes, there it is. Sean's in. He's like raising his hand. So since we're talking about temptation today, this morning, I was a little late to church this morning because I went to Dunkin' Donuts and I got a dozen donuts. Nate, could you bring me some donuts? This is Nate. I don't know if you all know Nate. He's also known as Baptism Bobby. Thank you, Nate. I appreciate it, man. So in my hands, guys, I have a dozen rings of happiness. Fresh rings of happiness. A dozen donuts. You see these ones in the middle? These are Ravens donuts. Praise the Lord, all right? So here's what I wanted to do. All right. I want you to imagine for a second that these donuts represent sin. Now, by the way, donuts do not represent sin. This is just for illustration purposes, all right? But let's say that God has shown you, hey, you need to be healthy, and you're convicted to be healthy, which means you're trying not to eat donuts. But you walk into church, and the pastor on the stage has a dozen rings of happiness tempting you. And so you start hearing a song in your head. Waymaker, miracle worker, donut licker. I don't know. Like you're thinking something is going through your head. And you want a donut. All right, but you don't eat a donut. You did not sin. All right, you're tempted to eat a donut. You're tempted to sin, but you did not sin. Now, if you pick up a donut and you smell the donut, is that a sin? I don't know. That's kind of a gray area. I'm not sure. If you pick up a donut and you lick the donut, is that a sin? Absolutely. Nobody can unsee that. Don't do that. But if you were tempted, but you didn't give in to the temptation. You did not sin. Y'all tracking with me? Yep. Now, just again, it is not a sin to eat donuts unless you eat the last donut in the box. My life motto is never, ever, ever eat the last donut in the box while people are watching. Okay? But anyway, I did that because, number one, I wanted to buy some donuts today. All right, but number two, I wanted those to represent whatever it is that tempts you. And I want you to know it's not a sin to be tempted. How many of you ever heard that Jesus was sinless? Anybody ever heard that Jesus was sinless? How many have ever heard that Jesus was tempted in every way just like you? Anybody ever heard that? Okay, we went to the same Sunday school, all right? So Jesus was tempted, and still he was sinless. All right, and here's where we get that. It's in Hebrews 4:15. It says this: For we don't have a high priest, which the high priest is Jesus, by the way. We don't have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are. So Jesus was what? Tempted in every way, just as we are. Yet he did not sin. And that means that it is not a sin to be tempted. Now, I don't know if you know this, but we have an enemy. We do. And it is not Tom Brady. Unless you're playing against Tom Brady. All right, but we have an enemy, and our enemy is the devil. And the devil, I don't want to freak anybody out with this, but the devil does this thing where he likes to make us feel what psychologists call false guilt just for being tempted. In other words, like you feel guilty just for being tempted. I'm the king of this. I'm the king of false guilt. Can I be like vulnerable in church? Can we be real in church for a second? All right, I'm going to tell you all a story. I got permission from my wife to tell this story. All right, the queen has approved this story. But let me tell you what happened. A few weeks ago, I was writing our baptism message that I preached here a few weeks ago. All right, so I was writing the message. I was at church, and I wanted to find out exactly how far Jesus walked to get baptized, because he walked from Galilee to the Jordan River to be baptized. So I was at church writing a message. So I Googled Galilee to Jordan River map, or Galilee to Jordan River distance. One of those two. I'm not sure which. Now, was that an innocent Google search? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Now, the first or second link that came up was to Etsy. Now, I don't know anything about Etsy, but I heard of Etsy. So I'm like, maybe I'll do my biblical research on Etsy. I guess. I don't know. So I clicked on Etsy, and there was this grid of pictures. The first picture that came up was like this old ancient Israel map. I'm like, golden. But the picture right next to that was actually a poster of a woman that was nakeder than Eve in Genesis. I'm talking naked, or as my dad says, naked. Now, I don't want to put all my cards on the table today. I discovered I was attracted to girls in kindergarten. Miss Pettit's class, all right? And Suzanne got 2 lollipops. Now, it didn't work out with Suzanne because God had much greater plans for me. Thank you, Lord. But I'm in church, studying for my message, looking up ancient Israel maps, and the nakeder than Eve girl is on the computer, all right? And so what I do? I shut that computer screen down so fast. Listen, if I had my squirt gun, I would have shot the computer. I went home to my wife, all right, because I love my wife. But I felt bad. And listen, it's not a sin to be tempted. You're breathing. You're going to be tempted to gossip. You're going to be tempted to overspend. You're going to be tempted to, look at something, or you're going to be tempted to, take another pill or have a 12-pack on Saturday night. I don't know what it is. But I know it's not a sin to be tempted. It is an opportunity to make a God-honoring choice. It's not a sin to be tempted. It's an opportunity to make a God-honoring choice. Here's the second point. You are never above temptation. You're never above temptation. One of my favorite stories my dad tells is when he was in seminary. And seminary is basically like college to become a preacher. And so he went to seminary down in Pensacola, Florida, which is like this little beach town down there, a lot like ours, except it doesn't have Nicolas or Thrashers. So it's not as good. Aren't you thankful for Nicolas and Thrashers? Oh my goodness. I'll move here just for that. So my dad is down in seminary down in Pensacola, Florida, and it was a holiday weekend back in the 1970s. Some of you can relate already, all right? And so my dad and all his seminary buddies decided to get in a vehicle on a holiday weekend and ride around Pensacola, Florida, just like bunch of seminary students listening to Simon and Garfunkel or whatever y'all listen to. I don't know. And the car is like slammed, all right, because there's a bunch of Bibles probably in the back. So it's got, slammed. It's the most spiritual car in all of Florida. Riding around Florida, they pull up to this stoplight. And as they're at this stoplight, the way the story goes is a girl walked across in front of them walking her dog, and she was wearing an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka. How do you all know that song? Yeah, there you grew up in the 60s. There you go. All right, so anyway, so you have like all these future professional Christians in the car, and you have the world's smallest bikini walking in front of the car, and my dad said the car got completely quiet. Which, a car full of preachers that's quiet, that's a miracle. Nobody's saying anything. And so my dad said everyone's like looking around like at the clouds, like, whoo. People are looking at their belly button hole, like there's some lint in there. And finally, somebody broke the silence. It was my dad. And my dad said, wow, that was some dog, wasn't it? I've heard that story my whole life. I love that story. But listen, I tell you that story because I don't care who you are. If a car full of future professional Christians can all face temptation, you are not above temptation. Are you with me? You're not above temptation. Can I get all up in your business for just a second? Is that okay? Sure. I asked because Butch is in the room. I'm scared of Butch. So I'm going to get all up in your business. Not Butch, all right. But some of you may be tempted to sit here and think, oh, I'm so glad so-and-so is here. Because they really need this. I saw them on Friday night running down Route 1 with a lampshade on their head. Oh, they need this. They really need this. Okay, listen, if that's what you're sitting here thinking, you need to be careful. Because we have this tendency to think like, oh, this is for them. I would never do that. I wouldn't struggle with that. I wouldn't have those kind of issues in my life. And if you think that, you're exactly where our enemy wants you to be. Because our enemy will come at you in your weaknesses and he will come at you in your strengths. And so everybody who's watching online, everybody in this room, including the guy on the stage, is not above temptation. Listen, I tell you all my failures every single time I preach. That's why some of you come to church here, to hear Joel's failures. I told you guys this summer about a failure. I just got done preaching the last message in our series called How We Fight Our Battles. And I'd done the whole series and it went good. And I walked out of church, I felt extra spiritual that day. I don't know if you ever feel extra spiritual. You're like, I read the Bible 3 days in a row. We think we can glow or something. I don't know. I felt like I could glow in that moment. I was feeling pretty good about myself. And so I go out here, I get in my car, I go on the Route 1, and it's the end of June, so it's bumper to bumper traffic. And I get behind this vehicle, and I need to get over. And the vehicle next to me is a truck, Pennsylvania license plate. I remember it had Salt Life sticker. Which, by the way, I love people from Pennsylvania. But if you have a Salt Life sticker on the back of your Pennsylvania vehicle, you're having an identity crisis. This is what you're having. You're just not sure where you're actually from, but that's okay. So I looked over at Salt Life, and I was like, I needed to get over. And Salt Life would not let me in. I'm literally in front of the church. I'm in front of Chick-fil-A, Christian Chicken. I just got done preaching to you all. I'm feeling great about myself, and Salt Life would not let me in. Now, I looked straight at him. I locked eyes with Salt Life. I put my window down in front of the church, put my hand out. I gave him a thumbs up. I did. Thumbs up. Then I flipped it upside down and went like that. This is your pastor in front of the church after speaking. That's what I did. And the first thought I had is, that's why I do not put the Bay Shore bumper sticker on my car. But that's what I did in front of our church. And I tell you that because none of us are above temptation. None of us, okay? But we have a God above who's overcome every single temptation. And the reason that's important is because I just need to tell somebody here, you have a lot of self-confidence. You feel like you can, you're confident about your ability to fight off temptation and addiction. And we don't need self-confidence. We need God confidence. Our self-confidence, listen, if you're overly confident in your ability to fight off temptation, you need to bring it down, cowboy. You need to bring it down, cowgirl. Because, look, we are weak when we think we're strong. Our confidence comes from our Heavenly Father. Our strength comes from God. Our God is our help. He's our strength. He is our guide. And so you're never above temptation. Here's the third point. God will never tempt you. You know what I used to think? Oh, God's tempting me. He's gonna get me. Did anybody ever have that thought? Anybody at all? I used to think like God's the one who's tempting me. He's the one coming after me, and that's not God at all. Let me show you what Jesus' own half brother said. James chapter 1 verse 13 says this, and remember when you are being tempted, do not say God is tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and help me out, He never tempts anyone else. So that means God is not tempting you, but God will test you. God will never tempt you, but He will test you. All right, now that's okay because you tempt somebody because you want to watch them fail. You test somebody because you want to watch them grow. You want to help them grow. I know this because I do this with my kids. Where are the parents at in the room? Okay, some of you will probably relate to this. All right, I test my kids sometimes. This probably only happens in my house, probably not your house, but my kids leave their shoes literally all over the house except where they're supposed to leave them. Does this happen anywhere else? Yeah. Okay. Raise your hands. It's therapeutic for me. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your honesty because that makes me feel better. All right. My kids leave their 18 million shoes I think I found a pair of shoes on top of the fan before. Like they're everywhere. And so every day I gather all the shoes and I put all the shoes at the bottom of the stairs. All right. I do this daily. I do this hourly. Like put them out. And then I'll call my kids and I'll be like, kids, you see the shoe mountain? You know, the one that looks like Mount Everest? We'll call it Shoe Everest. I say, kids, go put those shoes in your room where they go. And then I watch my kids to see what they do. Anybody else like watch your kids to see what they do? Now I'm watching them because I'm testing them. I'm not tempting them. I'm not like, I'm just waiting for them to leave that one miniature Velcro shoe so I can pounce on them and be like, ha ha, I see what you did. You're going to live the rest of your days in the crawl space. Like this, sorry, I don't know where that, but is that what I'm doing? No, I am testing my kids because I want to teach them to be responsible so that one day they can grow up and move out. But we test our kids to move them forward. Parents, is that not true? True. We test them, all right? And we have a Heavenly Father who does the same thing. He tests us to move us forward, but the devil wants to tempt us to move us backwards. And we get mixed up about temptation because every big temptation comes out of natural desires. Now, I know this also because of my kids, all right? So like back to my kids and Mount Shuvius in my house. Whenever I ask my kids to put their shoes away, you know, that I piled up, all right, sometimes my kids will look at me and they'll say, no. Or, I don't want to do that. Now, let's pause for a second. Have I ever sat my kids down and said, hey, kids, when I ask you to do something, I want you to look right at me and say, no. Right. Have I ever did I teach them that? No. They were, listen, this is going to surprise some of you, but my kids were born little sinners. Those little turkeys are like, you know, they're like sheep. They are bad. All right, naturally, they are bad. Does anybody else have some bad kids? Yeah. But did you know it's just not our kids that are bad. We also are naturally bad. Turn to somebody next to you and say, you're bad. Come on. And if you enjoyed it, that's proof that you're bad. All right, so. And I tell you that because that means since we are naturally bad, that means we can't trust our own desires. Because our own desires are jacked up, aren't they? After James says that God won't tempt us, here's the very next thing he says. He says this in verse 14. He says, temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions. And when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to what? Death. Now, I think if we were to show this verse to our culture would have a heart attack. Our culture loves to like celebrate, like, hey, you do you, boo. You just live your truth. Live it out. Do. If you feel it, you should do it. Don't hold that out. And James would be like, well, no, you don't do what you feel. You end up in a morgue. This is not good. But temptation comes out of our own desires. That's why we justify. We're like, well, I just do this because it's the only thing that helps me relax. I do this because I work hard. I've earned this, or this is just who I am. God made me this way. And then we give in to sin, and then sin grows, and sin will always promises to look good, but it always takes us further than we want to go. Right. And I told you I was going to put all my cards on the table today, so here's all my cards on the table. Sin is fun. Sin is fun! Woo! So now, I know some of you are like, sin's not fun for me, Pastor Joel. Well, you're a liar, okay? Listen, if you don't think sin is fun, you're doing it wrong. Sin is fun. But I've told you this before. This is my line. Sin is like a sneeze. It's natural. Sneezes are natural, okay? It feels good while it's happening, but then you got a mess on your hands. Sin is like a sneeze. But we give in to that sin because it seems natural. It comes out of our natural desires. But temptation alone is not a sin. And I already told you that earlier. Temptation alone is not a sin. And so I kind of think temptation in a way can be good. And the reason I say temptation can be good is this. We'll put this on the screen. I believe every temptation is an invitation to depend on God. Every temptation is an invitation to depend on God. Okay, so you want to buy that $12,000 Louis Vuitton purse or whatever. I don't know, just to put a 12-ounce Chihuahua in it or whatever. I don't know. But that's an invitation to say, wait. My value doesn't come in that purse, all right, that I can't afford. My value is in God. Or when you want to get salty with Salt Life out there on Route 1. Hello. That's an opportunity for me to say, wait, I'm supposed to be the salt of the earth. I'm supposed to be the salt of Jesus in this place, okay? Or, whatever it is, every temptation is an opportunity, or is an invitation, is an opportunity, all right, to depend on God. And so number one, it's not a sin to be tempted. Number two, you're never above temptation. Number three, God will never tempt you. And the last point is this: there's always a way out. There's always a way out. No matter how big or small that temptation is, there's always a way out. No matter how culturally accepted or not accepted that sin is or temptation is, there's always a way out. No matter how many people know about this temptation in your life or don't know about this temptation in your life, there's always a way out. And I say that because of the verse we started with today. So let's read it one more time. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13, it says, and God is what? Faithful. I said it before you all even had the verse up there. And God is what? Faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can bear it. He will provide a way out. Now, the $1 million question is, what's your way out? What is your way out? And I don't know. It could be a lot of things. Let's start here. Maybe the first step is for you to admit that you have a problem. Right. To say, hey, I'm Joel and I'm addicted to Mountain Dew. Hi, Joel. Right? Maybe it's just to admit that you have a problem. Maybe you take it a step further and you tell God that you have a problem. And you say, God, I messed up. I've sinned. I need help. Would you help me? And by the way, when you do that, two things. Number one, God already knows. And number two, God will not pounce on you. He is proud of you. Right. He's proud of you for saying, hey, this is a struggle in my life. Maybe you take it a step further, you take a big risk and you tell somebody and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Would you be my accountability partner? Would you hold me accountable? And that's huge because what you keep in the dark grows and what you put in the light dies. And so it's a game changer to just tell people stuff and let things out and expose things. All right, I don't know what it is that is your step to get your way out, but maybe some of you, if you have a bunch of people in your life saying, hey, you got a problem. And you're like, I don't have a problem. I'm good. Not me. I don't have a problem. Listen, if 2 or 3 people are telling you got a problem, McFly, you got a problem. And so maybe it's to admit you have a problem. Maybe it's to tell God about it. Maybe it's to tell somebody else about it. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but I do know that our God is faithful, and there is always, always, always a way out. It reminds me of Disney World. I'll end with this story. Okay, so how many of you have ever been to Disney? Anybody been to Disney before? Oh my, look at this. If you just raise your hand, you know what that means? It means your net worth will be at least 10% higher if you did not go to Disney World. That's what that means. But our whole family went to Disney back in May. My in-laws paid for it. I felt the Holy Spirit or Mickey Mouse or something right when I said that they paid for it. Anyway, so we went down. They paid for us to go down there. It was an awesome trip. And one of my favorite rides was the Star Wars ride where you ride the Millennial Falcon. Come on now. And if you don't know what that is, then I don't know, Butch is going to come visit you, all right? So I don't know. You got to know what the Millennial Falcon is. So anyway, so we rode on this ship, or we got on the ship, and it looked real. I thought I was really in the Star Wars ship, all right? So I walked in. I thought I was Han Solo. And I thought my wife was Chewie, okay? So, no, I'm just kidding. She is not Chewie. She is, I'm just kidding. See, bad jokes. Just checking to see that you all are paying attention. Pray for me tonight. Okay, so anyway. So we get in the ship. It looks real. And so I have a bad picture, actually, of that I took while we were in the ship. So it's a terrible picture. But me and Stacy were in the back. There's 3 rows of seats. Me and Stacy are in the back, all right? K-I-S-S-I-N-G. We're kissing in the back, My father-in-law and my boy Nixon are in the middle 2 seats. And then my mother-in-law and my daughter Nora on the very front. All right, they're sitting up front, all right? And they're driving the ship. Now, I'll normally make a joke about my mother-in-law driving right now, but I don't know if I mentioned, but she paid for us to go there. So she drove fantastic. She was the best driver I've ever seen. And so she drove the Millennial Falcon. And so they had 2 jobs, all right? Nora and my mother-in-law had 2 jobs. Job number 1 was to drive the Millennial Falcon. Job number 2 was if we were to get in trouble during the ride, they were supposed to hit the button and take us into hyperspace, take us into light speed. And so, the ride started, and it was intense. There was like rebels shooting at us, and there's like, lasers, and there's Pennsylvania drivers with salt life stickers, and it's like, come on, are you guys in the ride with me? Okay, it's like a lot going on in the ride, and like we're in the back, and we're like, listen, hit the button, take us into hyperspace, and they didn't hit the button. And again, we're sitting here like, oh my gosh, there's lasers coming at us, everything's hitting us. And we're like, hit the button, hit the button. Now, I wasn't yelling. All right, I was just trying to be kind because I don't know if I mentioned, but my mother-in-law paid for us to go. So I was like, hit the button, please, and thank you. All right. But everybody's like, hit the button. And finally, I don't know what took so long. Finally, they hit the button. And we went into hyperspace. We went into light speed. Okay, goodbye, Mickey. Goodbye, I don't know, whatever else is going on. Like, goodbye, Darth Vader, Rebel Alliance. We went into hyperspace. Now, are you ready for this? You guys ready for this? All right. When you're a Jesus follower and you're in trouble, you got a button. And it's not called hyperspace. It's called hyper grace. Come on, did you hear that? Did you see that coming? Did you see that coming? Woo! Which means when you're in trouble, you got to hit the button. Everybody say hit the button. Hit the button. Listen, when you're like leaving traffic today and somebody in the church parking lot cuts you off and you want to like put the window down and give them the thumbs down because the pastor did it, listen, hit the button to the window. Put the window up. Hit the button on your radio. Turn on the bridge. Listen to something good, all right? When your boyfriend's trying to get fresh with you on the couch, hit the button. Hit it twice. Hit him the 3rd time. Okay, get out of there. Hit the button. Everybody say hit the button. Hit the button.